We are really excited to welcome you to this year's Dharamsala International Film Festival. It's our ninth edition, and normally we'd be welcoming you here in Dharamsala, but because of the pandemic, we decided to go online. So welcome online to whoever is out there. It was quite a difficult decision for us to go online this year. We thought about it very hard, but then we decided it was more important than ever to showcase good independent cinema while we are in this very unusual situation. So we decided to go online, and the decision hopefully will be the right one. And with a very small team of dedicated people, we have put together this film festival. We spent 6 months watching hundreds of films, and we have selected the very best for you. So, I hope you're going to enjoy those films. While watching these films, we've journeyed to places around the world. We have learned so much, and we've empathized with so many characters. And we hope for you, it's going to be the same sort of journey sitting at home, wherever you are. So enjoy it.
Good evening and welcome. Although we'll miss the intimacy and companionship of a physical festival this year, the online edition does allow us a few advantages. We've been able to expand our program, and this year we'll be showing over 100 features, documentaries, and shorts from more than 40 countries. Many of these are India premieres, and they represent some of the best of indie filmmaking from around the world today. And with the support and involvement of many filmmakers, film professionals, and critics, we've also been able to put together an amazing package of special programs, which include panel discussions, live conversations like this one, and Q&As with filmmakers. The online version has also allowed us, thanks to the sometimes benevolent magic of the internet, to reach audiences across India, South Asia, and even the world. So thank you for joining us wherever you are. We hope you enjoy the lineup we have in store for you, and please do help us to spread the word and make this online version of DIFF a huge success. And now, to kick off the ninth edition of the Dharamsala International Film Festival, please welcome film critic and writer Namrata Joshi and our very special guest, renowned director Dibakar Banerjee. A huge thanks to both of you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Ritu and Tenzing. Congratulations, big time, and best wishes for a very, very successful ninth edition of the festival, a unique one at that, A big welcome to you, Dibakar. It's indeed a privilege to be steering the conversation this evening with a much admired Indian filmmaker. But before we get on to that, just some house rules which I wanted to acquaint all of you with. You can ask questions of Dibakar. There is a tab at the bottom of the screen called Q&A. Please do key in your queries there. I'll try and accommodate as many questions as possible in the end of the session. And we'll go on for as long as the time and Dibakar, your patience permits. Yeah. So Dibakar, to start off, since we are talking about film festivals, I remember a long time back, Jaideep Sahani telling me that you and Aditya Chopra, he says that when he met you guys, you had seen practically every single film in the world. Now, was the film festivals a catalyst for that? How important have film festivals been to you as a filmmaker, as a viewer? Do you remember, your passion for cinema being fueled by them in any manner?
I think, the answer is yes, and yes is an understatement. So, that's the shortest way I can put it, because there's no way to know about parallel lives and parallel universes unless and until there is some window where those parallel universes are exposed to you without an agenda. And that's what a festival is. A festival is which celebrates many, many things, a variety of things, some of them alien, some of them not understandable to a boy of 17, yet fascinating in a way that even he can't explain. And those festivals build up people who are kind of connected with the world. Because one of the shortest ways and the most immersive ways of getting connected to another universe is by seeing a film. So for a 16-year-old boy to go to a Delhi Film Festival, whatever, in those days, the film festival used to happen in Delhi, if you remember, before Goa.
City Fort.
So, City Fort. So, and such lovely films, huge screens sometimes. And often those film festivals would run through all the cinema halls in the city. And, sometimes I had some of my cousins and relatives who were film enthusiasts. So I used to see them, especially my brother-in-law. When I was a kid, my brother-in-law was that kind of a film fan who would go to a East European, director's film, I would go with him, and then some of the films I wouldn't be allowed, and there would be this frenzy for those films which had nudity, so that was a new phenomenon for me to sort of even understand that this is what's happening. But at the other side, there were these lovely films that everybody was negotiating with the janitor for a jane do na yaar, jane do na yaar. There were so many ways that people used to sneak into, there were so many people that you knew. I know a guy who knows a guy who will get me in. All of that is the joy of a festival. And then you see all these other people and then going to see this film, and you see this film and you understand about half of it, but the other half of it you don't understand, yet it keeps, resonating in your head. And then you see these, older people talking about the film coming out, so you're very curious about that world. That opens up. And then later on only you start figuring out that, okay, I was seeing it because the editing pattern was so lovely and all that. Now I have words to explain that. At that point, I was the most innocent viewer of cinema with a thought, other than only profit, let us say. Cinema with a polemic, cinema with an ideal, जो भी बड़ी बातें हम जो नहीं बोलते हैं, तो वही वाला. So when you see those kind of films, and then you come back and it resonates with you, then something starts forming. So festivals are schools. Festivals are places where you come to sort of, just live the joy of what you love. Somebody who loves the craft festival loves craft. Somebody who loves films will love a film festival. So I just gave you the long answer of yes.
And particularly in a year like this, right, where cinema has been at such a critical juncture as so many other aspects of life, I think this remains a tiny window to celebrate it somehow, isn't it?
In whatever way we need to celebrate it. Because one aspect of cinema celebration has been, I don't know whether it's temporary or longer than temporary. The one aspect of cinema viewing that has been taken away from us is the fact that we can no longer have the collective viewing experience, where the viewing changed something in us while sort of synergizing with 1,000 other people or 500 other people or 200 other people. That experience is lost to us for some time to come. So now it's probably about viewing alone and being together. Something like that.
That's an interesting way of putting it. I noticed your T-shirt, Dibakar, and it suddenly took me back to a whole lot of discussions I was having with Ritu and Tenzing when we were deciding on the opening night conversation. And, they've always been underscoring the fact that DIFF is an independent film festival in the truest sense of the term. And we thought that in the fitness of thing, you would be the best person to initiate a conversation around cinema for the festival, because you also seem to be a free spirit doing your own thing while being in the mainstream. And I remember you telling me that you feel you are inhabiting the fringes. How is it to live there and thrive there as a filmmaker?
I don't think by any stretch of imagination my life can be described as thriving. But
you're being too modest.
And I mean materially, exciting, a thrill, definitely. But I think, listen, unfortunately, there's no straight answer, because 15 years ago when I started making films and tasted the sort of, the joy of being a filmmaker whose work is seen by more than, your friends and acquaintances. You're reaching out to people you don't know. That's the biggest joy of all. So from that to now, I have changed a lot. In those days, I didn't know that I was doing something different. I thought that I was doing something cheap, jo nikal jayega. A very cheap film with actors like Anupam Kher. I was looking at it like that, and I wanted to tell a story which came from me. Actually, we just had the story that came from the lived experiences of Jaideep and mine. We had common childhoods and all that. So that's all Jaideep and I knew. Jaideep knew a little more because he had worked on 2, 3 very successful films by then. But I wasn't privy to that knowledge of that lived experience. So I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know where I thrived or whatever happened. And I have not been very clued in as to how I'm doing, except to know that I have a film to do or I don't have a film to do. My film has done well. My film has not done so well. My film really satisfies me. My film doesn't satisfy me. These are the kind of things that I've been aware of. So what happens from there is that you just learn to survive. At that point, I was trying to make films because probably I wanted some money and fame. There was a period where I thought that why don't we attach that money and fame to the common mainstream star-based system of Bollywood? And I was trying to make it happen. I'm still trying to make it happen, but with better knowledge and with probably a little bit more of wisdom. So a little bit more than what earlier was, and that's all I can say because I have no clue because whether I'm in the fringe or in the thing, or I would like to be right in the middle of the river, baby. Flowing in gold and honey and money. I would love that. Who wouldn't love that? But what happens is that experience has taught me that a film takes 2, 3 years to sort of, mount and finish. Therefore, a lot of your life has to go into it. And a lot of money or a lot of social clout doesn't have that much of interest for me than a lot of engagement and a lot of discussion and a lot of living around the films that I'm making, so that they sort of keep engaging with something and whatever. So I mean that gives me a much greater joy. That doesn't mean that I'm happy about not being the richest and the best known filmmaker in the world. I'm not happy about that. But that unhappiness is less than the unhappiness I feel when I'm not being able to make something that I can engage you with. By you, I mean the audience, So you just go by that, and experience has taught you that if you don't do that, your inner nature is such, is that you screw up. आप ना घर के रहोगे ना घाट के रहोगे. So sort of, one has come to understand what to stick to, what to really push for, what to die for, which fights to fight. So if that means that I'm surviving, definitely, yeah.
But Dibakar, there are 2 levels of freedom. I mean, there are several, but what come to my mind immediately is one is conceptual and aesthetic freedom in terms of what you're making. And then there is the financial freedom to be able to bring that onto the screen. Now, I'm wondering whether you took to production to bargain better for the conceptual freedom for your ideas, or becoming a producer, has it come with another, a kind of battle to negotiate freedom, so to speak?
I cut both ways. My main reason to produce is, unfortunately, no one yet has been able to tell me more about how to save money. That's the only reason I'm producing,
Mhm.
because I I can do things cheap, but that doesn't mean that they look cheap. I can do comparable things with more planning than budget thrown at it.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
that's the only reason I produce.
Mhm. Mhm.
The day I get somebody who says that, listen, you budgeted at 4, I can see all of these things happening. Let's cut it down to 3.5, and let's keep that 50 for something as a special gift to our film when we finish this film in 3.5. I've never met somebody who can say that. Everybody has told me that, listen, this needs 5, 6. So then, so then I have to get down to it, because I have to do it as my film only and all that. And fortunately, over the last 15 years, over our filmmaking, Anurag, me, and all those people who came in the 2005, 6, 7 bracket, and who were supposedly at the sort of, in the new wave, which we, what happened was that those 15 years, lots of young professionals came into the movie business with real dreams in their eyes of doing something different, because for a while it looked like we would be able to change things. And all those bright minds have become producers today.
Mhm. Mhm.
They have also survived. They have also bled. They have also paid their dues. They have also faced their frustrations. But they are, few of them who stuck on. So they've come to those, those positions where they're producing, they're heading a studio, all those kind of things. So I'm looking forward to a time genuinely where somebody says, just, don't produce today.
Mhm.
And then I'll do it cheaper than you can. And then I will give you as much bang for your buck, and probably more. So वो competitor producer मिल जाए जो मेरे से सस्ती मेरे और इतनी ही अच्छी फिल्म बना ले, मैं ले लूंगा.
You were saying, given a chance, you would want to be in the center of things, in the thick of things. And I was just thinking, you are in your office. It is your office, right, in Parel. Um,
लाल बाग,
even geographically, physically speaking, Dibakar, you are not where the Bollywood center is. I mean, hardly anyone from the Hindi film industry that I know of lives in Parel. Why? Again, is it why did you consciously choose to be on the fringes, so to speak, of the Bombay film industry?
Nothing so exotic.
Okay.
We moved to Bombay because of my wife. I was not working at that time. I
Mhm.
had no job. I had nothing. I had
Mhm.
cans of Khosla ka Ghosla in my hand. And me, my producer, and Jaydeep were walking around the whole world holding those cans. And we were saying, Allah ke naam pe kuch de de baba. Film bani hui hai, khatam karte. So that was the period. So I was in an absolute black vacuum because we had shot the film. We were editing it. Our producer, Samita Raj, she was, I can't even describe to you what she was going through trying to make that film finish. You know, she was, getting the financiers together. The financiers had their own issues to work through. She worked through them. Jaideep, who was sort of, looking after he was the creative producer. He was making sure that the script as it stood came out in the first cut, because this is a guy who's never edited anything beyond 60 seconds. He's an ad filmmaker. And Jaideep has gone out on his faith to sort of, tell our producer to listen, Dibakar can do this. Just on faith, just purely on faith. And this is first-time producer, first-time director, and a screenwriter who is leaving lucrative projects and coming to sort of, steer the ship to its port. So it was a terrible time in our lives. I had no idea where we were going, where we were living. My wife, she moved to Bombay. Her job, she moved to Bombay. She got her first, she worked in a big corporate firm and she got her, company accommodation. That's where I moved in from my hotel in Bombay, where I was sitting and editing Khosla Ka Ghosla, and going around and living with my friends to try and sort of, defray the hotel cost. So my friends who were much richer than me, they were in Bombay and they were sheltering me. Dibakar picture bana raha, picture bana raha. So I used to go and stay in their house. This is what happened. When my wife moved to Bombay, I moved in. And when we moved into that house, it was lovely. It was that Parel area somehow. And, we were very happy with it. and we've just gone on living there. And then from there, I used to sort of do panel direction for a producer whose offices were in this very same building. They have moved since. And it was like 7 minutes away from the company flat where I was staying in my wife's company flat. So it kind of slowly and slowly built piece by piece. And then I said, okay, this is 7 minutes away from home. This is everything. And somehow we just got rooted. And ever since that, I've rarely moved out of this place, and I've not needed to. And till date, it gives us immense pleasure and comfort. Someday, I'm sure it'll be snatched away from us. So that's the only reason I'm here. If my wife's company flat had been in Andheri, then I would have lived there. That said, I basically hate commuting rather in Bombay, so I don't go anywhere if I can avoid it. And I love town. And what COVID has done is that it has turned 99% of our interactions digital. So some part of me, I'm not complaining. I'm so sorry to sound so unromantic. There's no other reason.
But again, you're talking about 99% of the stuff being online now. The lockdown has imposed its own restrictions on all of us. How has it been for you as a filmmaker to cope with it? How have you negotiated your freedom with the pandemic and the lockdown?
Sheer luck, absolute luck. I'm a lucky bastard, even from that point of view. So what happened was that March 14th, we were supposed to finish shooting a film that I'm shooting for Netflix around the 26th of March. And around the 13th or 14th of March, we realized that we wouldn't be able to finish the film because after that, the lockdown would start. And that's when we had just about 4 days of shoot left, 3 or 4 days, whatever. From that point onwards till today, it has been just 1 point journey to finish that. We have finished that. We are going through the post, and I hope we all live till the day that the film finishes. But I was totally consumed by that. So frankly, I have actually no idea. For me, actually, time has flown between March and now. In between that, there was a long period where I was away from my family. And then there was a long period where I was with my family. And now there's again a long period where I haven't been with my family, living alone, just chasing my film. So these are the personal things. And I know from my friends and acquaintances, and if anybody is listening to us, all of them are parents, all of them are people, all of them have work, all of them are. So it's like, I've seen people, how they've suffered being away from their family and what has happened and all that. So I can't complain. I've had the best that anyone can have in this situation, No
but complaint. You must have missed something, or not at all.
Is there any end to missing? Because right now, because I'm working in Bombay, I'm missing being back home with my family. When I'm there, then I'm continuously worrying what's happening to this project or that project or whatever. So then I'm working. So when you're at home, you're missing work. When you're at work, you're missing home. That missing is going on happening. But otherwise, no, nothing else.
But the processes of filmmaking, shooting, editing, you managed to do that pretty well in the 7 months.
What happened was that we planned for about 5 months and shot for 5 days.
Oh, wow.
So that's how it works.
Okay.
That's how it works.
Okay.
Of course, those 5 months could have been crunched to about 3 to 4 months, but the world was opening up only post-September, so we had to wait for that. But the planning that we had to do to bring this shoot, to finish this shoot, and the way we had to reimagine, some very interesting parts of the film, and the way we had to find solutions has been one of the most thrilling moments of my life. I can't even tell you what fun that fun we had solving those challenges, because each challenge was kind of insurmountable, at least on the face of it. Then we went back and started thinking again and all that, and somehow the film benefited for it. The film sort of became deeper, and all of us, all the HODs are agreeing. Jo hua, bura nahi hua.
And it is called Freedom, right?
No. There is no title yet. We have no idea. I have no idea what to name it.
Mhm.
I mean, so it's just I have no idea because
Obviously, I mean, that's you don't want to tell us more, I'm sure, because the whispers around have been that it's called Freedom, but that's not a title that you've decided on as yet.
I could tell you, I mean, 3 working titles. They will mean nothing. So, which I won't because I can't remember. So, there are actually 3, 4 working titles going around.
Mhm, mhm.
I wonder why people are picking up on just Freedom. I have no idea.
Just
I
sounds
never
good. I
thought.
mean, if you are exploring that idea, much needed in these times.
I never thought that people cared so much about freedom. I wonder why they are paying so much attention to it.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Or you think people have lost that independent bone in their body?
I don't know about that. I guess it's a question of how afraid you are and how caring you are and how uncaring you are. The mix of these 3.
Mhm, mhm. That says a lot, and I'm going to get back to it. But first, I'm going to get back to it. But first, we've talked about all kinds of independence and freedoms. But as a filmmaker, do you ever feel the need to break free of yourself, from yourself and your expectations of yourself?
No,
Okay.
my expectations are sort of, of myself are of an order that the reverse is true,
Mhm,
that I can never actually attain what I'm aiming for. So, so there is no need to break. I mean, far from breaking free, if I could just make the film that's running in my head, that would be a start. Let's see what happens. And the
mhm,
head keeps changing also. That's the problem.
mhm,
One head is thinking the film, another head is shooting the film, another head is editing the film. So then the balance between what you have written and shot and editing, so all that problem keeps me sort of, engaged enough not to worry about how can I break free of myself. It's not
mhm,
I haven't gone there yet.
mhm.
you know.
But you do try to reinvent each time, right? Is that a singularly important way to go ahead as a filmmaker all the while?
I don't feel the need to reinvent, not at all.
Okay.
I can tell you piece by piece what I have felt the need to.
Mhm,
Khosla was a need to make a film, and our producer came to us and said that I want you to make a film on generation gap.
mhm,
And then Jaideep sort of, took a core of his life, of what had happened to him and his family, and moved this story around it about this father that we wanted to talk about, both me and Jaideep, through our lived experiences, distinct but similar. I just wanted to do that. When Khosla finished and I got the chance to make my next film, I had already been pursuing Bunty's life for a year and a half, gathering things about his life. And there was something that is moving and forming inside me. There was nothing else that I wanted. When that finished, by that time, I had already been pursuing a 3-year-old idea, a film that I wanted to make even before Khosla Ka Ghosla, which was a 20-minute short film, which I extended into a full-length feature film called Love, Sex or Dhoka, because I was continuously trying to reprise that. After Love, Sex or Dhoka, Urmi told me, why don't you make something that is overtly political, or rather moves around the political arena? So that's when I said something like Z. So she said, no, Z. Why don't you read Z? And why don't you sort of, see if we can do something around that? So that's what I did, because Urmi and I were together interested in Z as a book, and we wanted to do something around that political arena. After that, the next film that I did, I'll call my short films also, they were bonuses and they were part of my journey because each short film prepared me.
mhm,
So after that, the Vyomkesh film, I had been sort of following up for 4 years before that, because that is also that I wanted something to make. So basically, I'm just chasing my pet project.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
There is no, what happens is that we change. And the film has to reflect that change through whatever project that you're doing. If you're doing your first film about your father, then obviously there'll be a lot of patriarchy in it. Benign, but it'll be there. That's what's there in Khosla, Khosla, Khosla. When you grow up a little bit, then what you know about the class difference gives you a sort of, point of view beyond Khosla's house. Therefore, lucky, in which the Khoslas are the villains for whatever reason. From there, something about the camera, whatever, something about the camera, this, that, and all that. From there, so each time the aim and the project and the vehicle changes, and that whole conscious act of reinvention that one is talking about is just not valid here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't want to reinvent myself. I'm just chasing what I'm trying to do.
But there is a certain progression there, right? And that's bound to be when you're saying that, from your first film, which looked at the patriarchy to where you move. I mean, that's an important facet of life. You have to move somewhere and leave something behind.
I agree with you. I think it's aging. I'm just aging. That's all. It's just time. It's just, it's just gerontia. It's just, I'm just getting older and older. That's all it is. And of course, it has to be like that. By older, I don't mean that, I'm physically stooped and no hair, which is the truth. But what I'm saying is that by just living, your experience changes. No. So that experience reflects in what you're doing. So I think that change should be automatic. You have read your own pieces. 20 years ago, you would have written something, and now you said, "Oh God, I don't want to read this. This is like too young." So it's like that only.
True. I'm going to go back to this very interesting thing that you'd spoken about caring, questioning, and resisting. The moment that you've been away making the film, I think has also been a very important moment of reckoning for the film world at large. I think there is yeah. Sorry, I'm going to get back to what I was saying, that all this while that you've been shooting, making the film, let's not say shooting, has also been quite a moment of reckoning for the industry, of late. And it's not just the financial disaster that has struck the industry that we are talking of, but the way the vilification has happened. I think it's a moment when we find both the media and cinema at a really low phase. And what to talk of people like me who are from the media and write on cinema. I think we are facing a double whammy there. How do you grapple with it? Did making the film take you away from it? Because even when you're away, I don't think you as a person are quite away from what's happening in the world around. How did you tackle it? Because I think it was a very low moment for the industry, the way it was being pulled down.
I am, unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
I feel as much about whatever is happening to the films industry as I feel about any other thing in my country.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm really concerned about the film industry. I'm really concerned about the education system, which creates new citizens and Indians who come in and create a new world. I'm really concerned about the hardening of identity that is happening at the cost of happiness. Everybody's just a less frigging happy. Everybody's unhappy. Everybody's got that unhappy look on their faces, even those who pretend to be happy. Everybody's got that set look. Everybody is out to sort of, face something that's about to attack them. This afraid time, this very anxious time. So I care about all these things. I have never been away from anything. And I've always been there for everything. And I think that now again, it's a very similar thing that I am saying today that I found myself saying when we had given national awards back, when FTII was under a lot of pressure, and a lot of that pressure was negative. There are all kinds of pressure can be exerted on an educational institute to improve its output. One kind of pressure can be positive, and another kind of pressure can be negative, which doesn't really solve the problem of the output, but does something else. And that's what I said. And that's what I said, that it's an education issue. It's not a film industry issue. I had said it, quote. And I had said that all parents and all the citizens who care about their children's education should start noticing these things and say, and raise a voice and engage. Then whatever happens, happens. But don't ignore it. Don't try and shove it under the carpet. Engage with it meaningfully. Don't engage with it, whatever, with a slogan or whatever it is. Just figure out what kind of Indians do we want to educate and bring into this world. Films is a part of that. So I thought films was a part of that. Whatever is happening to the films industry, I'm saying the same thing, that I hope the people and a vast greater number of people who send their children to film institutes, a 100-fold number of those people watch films as their only means of getting into that parallel universe. No film festivals. Even if there was COVID, there was no COVID, and if we had anywhere to go and watch a film, not so many film festivals being allowed to prosper and diversity being allowed to prosper. So all of those issues notwithstanding, those people who watch these films, the commercial films, the so-called parallel films, the international films and all that, what they're enjoying and what they don't know is that they're enjoying variety, which adds quality to their life. Now, if they ignore whatever's happening to the film industry today, then very soon, film industry is going to lose all its variety. And then the audience will be less happier and more freaked up, because you'll only see the same and the same and the same and the same again and again and again and again and again. You will be one bored, depressed audience, which you have already started being. So if the same people, the general citizens of India, audiences, parents, if they ignore what is happening to the film industry as paying public, then they will get something that'll be something very unhappy. This is what I had said.
You're addressing a very core need, but I was also kind of, when I was seeing all that was happening and the way the industry was being brought down, I thought about a few conversations I've regularly had with you. You've talked about the systemic, destruction of the cultural and the educational institute. And once I remember you had very specifically held up the middle class as being the ones colluding in that, in that attempt. And what worries me is that now, again, when films and filmmakers are being talked about randomly, in a very cavalier manner, somewhere it's the middle class which is being very voyeuristic in consuming all that nonsense that is being thrown, bringing out a very regressive streak, which is very, very dangerous, isn't it?
I don't know whether it brings out a regressive streak or it panders to a regressive streak.
Okay.
I don't know which came first.
Okay.
The chicken or the egg.
Okay.
But if we forget that futile question, then we have to answer this question, that what filters what Bollywood is doing to the paying public? The media, right? And whoever controls the media controls that filter to the public. at one point of time, if something had been done to ensure that control of media was not monopolistic, control of media was more equitable, more diverse, more easier. And then what would have happened was that that filtering also would have been a lot more equipoised. You would have gotten everything to the story. But when you allow your political freedom and your social freedom to be curtailed by ignoring these things that happen in front of your eyes, then there comes a time when the media is more or less controlled by someone. And if someone gains something by attacking your image or your reputation or your profession, that some person will use it against you. And the reason, and therefore, one has to tell the people who are listening to that filter, tell them effectively that what you are listening to is filtered, and here we are telling you that this is what the truth could be, or whatever. But that much of variety has to be there. But we've already killed that variety about 7-8 years ago. Now comes the fact that why films? Because, and this is coming back to my thing that Veena was discussing here, because I think the Indian films cater to a huge entrenched middle class, okay? And those middle class, that middle class exists on the primacy of the family, okay? As long as the family is, family only means property and as much of accumulation of property, that's fine. So therefore patriarchal themes, all those kind of things, we keep enforcing on each other, and those kind of things happen. And there are some kind of films which describe it by sexual sort of, straying away or not. So what happens is a very moral edifice is structured around it, what film people are. So basically, film people are soft targets to be shown as somebody who peddle some immoral pleasures and therefore also partake in it. And that is where what you said, I completely agree with it, that we are doing two things at the same time. We are enjoying it vicariously. हम चटखारे ले रहे हैं क्योंकि हमको मजा आ रहा है. किसी की जान जा रही है, किसी को अंदर कर दिया, किसी पे मुकदमा हो गया, किसी के साथ कुछ बहुत बुरा हो गया ना, अच्छा लगता है. अब ऐसी हालत हो गई है, तो हम चटखारे ले लेके उसको देखते हैं. और ये उनको पता है जो मीडिया कंट्रोल करते हैं, तो वो हमको इस तरह की चीजें और दिखाते हैं ताकि हमारा जो नशा है ना, हमारा जो नशा है ना उम्मीदी को देख के ना, हमको जो एक चटखारा लग गया तो हम वो देखने लगते हैं कि देखो इन्होंने ये इमोरल हरकत करी है, इन्होंने ये इमोरल हरकत करी है. और क्या हो रहा है कि आप उसको दिखा भी रहे हो बतौर एंटरटेनमेंट, क्योंकि वो एक फैंटेसी का सहारा बन जाता है कि अरे देखो बड़े शहरों में बड़े लोग ऐसे अय्याशी करते हैं, तो वो एक फैंटेसी दिमाग में मेरे बैठ गई, अब मैं फैंटेसाइज कर रहा हूँ. एंटरटेनमेंट है, सो इट इज एंटरटेनमेंट. So the moment we are used like this, the moment anyone is used like this, film industry, take the political industry, take any other industry, anybody can be attacked like this when you have only mono-filtered access to discourse. And this was the simple thing that lies at the heart of what we are discussing, that when you have choices, it's harder for someone to control or something to control everything. Therefore, you have to push for choice. All of this has to come together in the fact that the audience has to say, no, we want choice. We want to see these films. We want to see these film directors. We want to see these stars. We want to see these upcoming people. And if something happens, if some Pakistani film is banned from sort of, being screened in a sort of, film festival, citizens will stand up. क्या कर रहे हो यार, फिल्म फेस्टिवल ही तो है. अगर फेस्टिवल में, अगर उत्सव में हम मनाएं ना, तो हम क्या मनाएंगे? उत्सव में तो मनाते हैं ना, तो लेट अस सेलिब्रेट. तो वो सेलिब्रेशन की चॉइस अगर चली गई है, तो फिर ये तो शुरुआत है. और ऐसा नहीं है कि हमें ये नहीं पता था पहले, हमें सब पता था, हमने सब देखा है. So all these things come into some extent explaining how I tackled with it. I'm making my film.
Dibakar, just one last point before I start taking the questions, because already some of them are flowing, and I would request everyone to please keep keying in your questions, and I'll put them on to Dibakar. Dibakar, you had spoken about 2000 and how, the early 2000, and I also remember them very fondly, that time when there was a whole influx of talent I saw, because, that was a period for me as a journalist also to get more and more focused on writing on cinema, where a lot of people from across India came and made Bombay their home. And I think somewhere the diversity, the wide variety that you're talking about in terms of the stories, the films that we are seeing happened because of that. Now when what is happening happens, the way the whole discourse around cinema is being skewed. My worry is that a good thing which had started वो कहीं पीछे तो नहीं चली जाएगी. That whole very primitive thing about cinema not being the profession for good kids from good families to come to. It's maybe too early to assume that, but nahi hoga.
I don't think that'll happen, because I'm answering this objectively. I don't think that we need to fear about, because I think a certain kind of a right-wing capitalism will exist for the next 20, 30 years. And capitalism knows that that power and fame are interchangeable. So the star system will be quite buttressed, I think, because I think the powers want people to look at one thing so that they can be diverted of hundreds of other things. That's how it works. That's how you control people. So that'll always, that'll happen. But I'm praying that the digital world that has opened up will democratize this a bit more. Already, because of, let us say, the platform world opening up, or whatever it is opening up, directors like us are being able to work with actors that we long to work with in leading roles and those kind of things, and which for a theatrical thing may not be possible, or vice versa. Some star who's known with the theatrical world has decided, okay, this is new and interesting or promising enough for me to sort of do something. So all these kind of things are happening. So I think this is another change time. And what we make with this change time will define the years further. I think if we manage to sort of, push out some very diverse sort of, pieces of work with new actors, unknown actors, and some very sharp pieces of work with known actors, stars or theater stars and all that, where they completely challenge themselves to reinvent themselves and really work at it, then I think we'll open up a new world for some time, and, but I can only hope that happens. It'll happen for some time, and I'm sure it's a matter of how much fighting. The hardening of political stances all over the world can play an unpredictable sort of part in this. That we'll have to see, whichever way history goes.
So you'll quietly keep making your own films.
I don't know about quiet. I've been, going off the deep end for the past 30, 40 minutes. I don't think I'm quiet at all.
Yes, whenever we manage to pull you out of, the world you get into, I think one does get to hear a lot from you. Okay, now I'm going to get to the audience questions now. So an anonymous attendee asks, why did you decide to shoot your latest project on 35mm?
Lovely question. Thank you so much, attendee, to ask that, because it's such a lovely thing to talk about. I didn't shoot the whole film on 35mm. I wish I could. We cannot these days. But I shot a part of the film in 35 on film because it helped the narrative. the visual difference between digital and 35, and I'm not saying which is good, which is bad. I used that to sort of evoke something which I think merged with the form and content quite well. So it was completely justified using film over there. So that was something lovely. I heard a 35mm camera over after 7-8 years. It was such a thrill, and both me and my DOP, or what shall I call? I mean, he's something else in my life. Mr. Ranjan Palit, all the doc makers, I mean, half the webinar will know about him. So, I mean, all 20 of them. So he's one of the most celebrated documentary cinematographers in India and in the world. So, because he took to the idea very well. And I knew that I just had the guy, because Ranjan, very interestingly, is not really invested in this debate about digital and 35. Ranjan is invested in going there and getting the image. So when that kind of DOP says, okay, yeah, this would justify. So we went through all the tests, we did a lot of things, and the results have come. They look just exactly what we hoped that they would look like. So I'm very happy. And thank you for asking this question. Really makes me happy.
Manasa T wants to know, how do you decide when to end a story? A lot of us struggle with endings.
Good question, Paul.
Now this is becoming a masterclass.
This is lovely. Manasa, again, thank you. Very humbly, I can sort of, tell you that this is something that I've been studying for the last 7-8 years, and it has got nothing to do with filmmaking. And if I could, if I could recommend a book to you, it would be Reading the Plot by Richard Brooks, not the playwright, but the critic. Reading the Plot. Reading the Plot is a kind of a book which I reached in the middle of my studies of narratology, and exactly that question, okay, where to end the story. So there is no ready answer, and there cannot be any ready answer. Before finding that answer, we need to learn about story, time, past, present, future. These 5 things we have to understand or imbibe in our heads, I think, for us to be able to go closer to that question, answer in a meaningful way. That is all I can tell you. And these guys, and once you read Peter Brooks, the glossary and bibliography will give you lots of other sort of, research sort of directions. You can even go on the internet. There's Hajar stuff. I read up on structuralism and neo-structuralism and all that very academic sounding things that I was afraid of. But when I went into it, I found it fascinating. And it's all about what stories we tell, how much time we take to tell the story, who's listening, how tired they are, what time of the day are you telling them the story? Is it a story that you're telling in 1 session or in 7 days? How do you make sure to make them come back on the 5th day? How do you start your first day? How do you end your 7th day? Is it a story that will start when he's up and will go to sleep when and it end when he goes to sleep, or when whatever? So it's about that narrative time and the relationship with whoever you're telling the narrative to, live or recorded, whatever. And that's how you know.
There are many anonymous attendees asking questions. I think it would be great if they could put their name in as well, because that will ensure getting a compliment from Dibakar, as he had done to the anonymous attendee earlier. Now, this Kshitij Kumar Pandey wants to know, and this is referring with reference to Byomkesh Bakshi, how did you ensure your creative vision is preserved over commercial aspects, even while working with a big banner?
By making it as cheap as possible. I mean, Virus Studios knew that beyond a point, the film could not be made any cheaper than what it could be made in. And Adi was like very, very convinced that it had to look good. Otherwise, it had no business to be. And he was putting a lot of faith in that. And so we got a certain budget, and we had to sort of plan like hell and sort of, squeeze every last penny out of it, because the only way to make a film 100% successful is to make it for no money.
Mhm.
Then you're a guaranteed hit.
Mhm.
And from there onwards, it goes to the real skill of those producers and directors who just know how much to put it in and how big to make it and how much of a gamble to take. And some of them are even the biggest of gamblers, and they know it in their blood what to make it for. In my case, I just make it the cheapest possible and then wait for the results.
Okay. Rashi Metkari wants to know, how has contemporary politics affected you as a filmmaker?
I think if you followed my work and if you followed what I'm trying to do, and if you've seen my films and if you've seen me or heard me say something, I think you know. But if you haven't, then what happens is that contemporary changes every 2-3 years. Then it becomes, past and future, as I was just telling another attendee. So it's not possible for someone like me not to react to the political zeitgeist of the time that we live in. That's my basic fundamental character. So I mean, it jayega nahi.
Mhm. I think this also you may have answered a bit, but I'm still putting it across to you. Just one second. It talks about Ashima Pargal is the name of the person who's asking this question. How do you think online platforms like Netflix will impact the film industry in the coming years?
I'm partly sort of, I partly sort of, answered this.
Answer that, yeah.
I have no idea of what platforms like Netflix, Amazon, HBO, and all such will have on the watcher. I know very well what Netflix and HBO and in Amazon can do to a filmmaker. It's good news only. At least we have people who are giving us alternatives. So that's very good for our industry people. That's very good for especially the fringe directors like me, who are sort of, kind of always on the edge of extinction when it comes to theatrical. And we are surviving by the skin of our teeth. एक हिट हो गया, एक क्रिटिकल हिट हो गया, एक मॉडरेट हिट हो गया, बहुत सस्ती में बनाई थी, चलो अच्छा फिल्म है, चलो करते रहो. So that's how we survive. And it's becoming harder and harder, and that's got nothing to do with the film business. That's got to do with the theater business. That's got to do with other such things. And exhibition is becoming extremely unfriendly. And a lot of social and political forces are acting to make that exhibition unfriendly. So, सबसे पहले कौन मरता है? फ्रिंज मरता है, अल्टरनेटिव मरता है. तो सबसे पहले हम लोगों पे चोट आ सकती है. So when these kind of platforms come up, then our possibilities of surviving become more. What is happening to the audience? I have no idea. I'm not too much of an audience, by the way. I mean, just making my own film takes, a lot of my time. So I don't know. I'll say the same thing, that all of this is good. And at the same time, all of these platforms could end up looking like exactly the same. Or not. It's the variety, it's the choice, it's the multiplicity that is key to survival. So once you have, as long as the audience has got something to, okay, today I want to watch a documentary on mothers around the world. He goes to sort of somewhere and he knows what to see and what. And the next day he wants to watch some summer blockbuster and he watches it and he's happy. And there's somebody who's obsessively watching the same thing, the next season or whatever. As long as there is variety, hum zinda hai. The moment variety goes away, we start dying.
Another anonymous attendee making a point, saying that everyone keeps making a distinction between meaningful cinema and entertainment, but maybe there are films that fall neatly between these two categories. Films like yours feel meaningful and also gripping. Is that a conscious effort?
See, if you're a storyteller, and I'm not even talking about filmmaking, and if you don't want to grip your audience, then I think there is some cognitive dissonance. Okay, between you wanting to be one wanting to be a storyteller and not want. भैया मेरे को कहानी सुनानी है, लेकिन कोई ना सुने तो ठीक है. तो ऐसे नहीं हो सकता. Anybody who wants to tell a story has only one aim, whether he admits it or not, that I will grip the people who are listening to me so that they have such a good time that next time I come to the market square, they come to me and pay money. That's how storytellers survive, whether they are writers or filmmakers or playwrights or whatever. So you have to grip your audience. I think the question is, who is your audience? There are filmmakers who make film very consciously to a specific audience, and that filmmaker and that audience have a language code between themselves. For example, the relationship between a Hanukkah and the European elite, let us say, okay, or the westernized elite all over the world. The relationship between Hanukkah and the westernized elite or middle classes, westernized elite and left wing or whatever, liberal classes or whatever, artistic classes, aesthetic classes, basically elite, is that when he makes a film, it's genuinely coded with all those symbols and everything that they understand and they talk to each other with. Another time, there is a director who's making a Govinda film in the 80s for the so-called masses. That director, that producer, the masses and Govinda, they know what are those 2 hours for, what will they mean for the audience, and they make it totally to that. And that becomes a hit, okay? If you see all kinds of hits and all kinds of genres, the rather sort of, a genuine hit, not a doctored hit or whatever, the rather common thing about them is that they are gripping. I've never seen a hit that is boring. I have seen a hit that I can't understand. I don't want to watch. It's not the subject is of not interest, or telling is not interesting. So you have to be gripping. And I have no idea how anything which is not meaningful, okay, can exist. The fact is that when you have a comedy film which is going from gag to gag to gag to gag to gag, the audience and the director have made a contract with boss. We are only engaging at gag level. And we want 100 gags in the next 2 hours. And I'm distracted and all. I just want a gaggy time and watch this star and watch that costume. The director who does it well is always a hit. The moment he doesn't do it well, it's not one of his hits, So when you see a David Dhawan film, when you see his top-most hits, none of them are inefficient. Namrata, you're a critic, right? I'm asking.
David Dhawan films? Yeah, of course they are. I mean, let me admit, his Divana Mastana is one of the one of the films I've enjoyed a lot.
No, all I'm saying is that they are efficient.
Efficient. Yeah, that see what you are saying in terms of what they want to deliver. They are working on it very well.
Absolutely.
It's so what you and it's. I think it's pointless to then kind of compare a David Dhawan with a Kurosawa. I think we are completely going. That how can somebody who but this whole thing about how can somebody
you can compare. There's no point judging.
And how can someone who likes Kurosawa like David Dhawan? One can,
Okay, let's say I don't like David Dhawan as much as I like Kurosawa. Left on an island, I would rather watch Kurosawa. That is me. Okay. There's another person on an island, given a choice between David and Kurosawa, though he likes Kurosawa, he'll take David. So that's fine. But what I'm saying is that the meaning is a basic. किस film से कितना meaning चाहिए is a contract between the audience and the filmmaker and this thing. And sometimes you land there unannounced. Sometimes you land up with a film which has got a different meaning from the other 100 films that are playing in the marketplace at that time. Then it's a question of your balls. Then you're saying that my meaning.
And it's about how much the filmmaker honors that that commitment or that that he has for the audience, right?
Yeah, not only honors, how much. I mean, he has to make compromises. He has to work around it. But he has to think about, this is what I mean. I'm happy if 3 people listen to me rather than 10.
True. Yeah.
So,
yeah. Dipendra Kumar Yadav, we are film students from NID. We wanted to ask you about your time at NID, the role it played, so far as your sensibilities as a filmmaker concerned.
NID shaped me in lots of ways, and not what they teach, because I was chucked out. I was a very bad student. And not what did I say? What they taught, and I got chucked out. And they actually were the faculty was advising me not to quit, just to take yet another semester drop to sort of to finish your courses, because we can't send you to the next semester if you have 90% of your courses are incomplete and unstarted. It's a little too much to ask, because they were being very kind, and I was being very stupid. I was not working. So, but that aside, the resource center, the film club, the seniors, the hostel, the pool and the pool parties, and the bun omelette walks to the bridge, and other such things that were happening in Ahmedabad, and basically grew me up. It really grew me up. But imagine growing up, you're 18, 19. I mean, I could have grown up in REC Rourkela or REC Bangalore and doing an engineering course. But imagine growing up when you're 18 and 19, watching Raging Bull on print. Watching I don't know, there's so many films. Watching Mephisto on print. Not even you're not going to a festival, you're watching Blade Runner on print, and as I said, watching the East European sort of masters or other such sort of world cinema on print. Watching lots of French cinema on print. So those experiences, and then listening to musicians or rock groups that you'd never heard of before playing from that lovely romantic senior kakamra, the ones who had single sort of rooms, and they had those boom boxes and these cassettes of everything in those days, from Weather Report to lots of other musicians, which I sort of won't name now, because that'll just seem like as if those are the only ones that were playing. But anyway, so a lot of music, the world opened up to me. Design world opened up to me. And that resource center and those books, my God, those books. And I discovered American cinematographer in the NID Resource Center. 10 years before I started making films. And I was fascinated by those, and then I started subscribing when I came out and started earning money. So that was everything. It grew me up. It's in me. It's right now. It's in me. And those seniors and those people who came from all over India. It was India thrown at me. Boom. I had never imagined that there were so many kinds of people. And I'm not talking about ethnicity or anything. I'm talking about classes. I'm talking about, people, the kind of families that they came from. It's so different from mine. So that was fascinating. It opened up. And and those school seniors, my God, some of them are still, just thinking of them yesterday. I wanted to buy a People Tree t-shirt, and I was, wanting to buy it online. And then I was thinking of Origi. And then I realized he was a legendary senior of our time. And he's still a legend to us. And I've just met him 1 year ago somewhere in some festival or something like that. And talking to him again, not again, first time, talking to him for the first time after reading his books was a pleasure. That's what NID gives you, you know. It makes you know some amazing people and opens up the doors to a very, very amazing world, which a middle-class Bengali boy from Delhi, DDF flats probably would not have gotten that easily. You know, it's a great window to the world.
We have a question from Nepal. Rajan Kathat. I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. You've been producing a films, for example, Titli. How much do you involve yourself in the creative process?
I have only produced Titli, and Titli, my contribution to Titli, and देखो भैया memory हर एक की अपनी अपनी memory होती है, and everybody thinks that they are the center of the universe. Okay, so when you are asking about my creative contribution to Titli, a film that I was itching to direct actually, you know. So this is how it happened. Kanu basically wanted to sort of, you know, start making his own film. Then we started talking, and then we were always in touch. And then he developed 2-3 ideas, and out of that, somehow while discussing, you know, I saw Titli shaping up. And at some point, when the YRF slate became available to me, I asked Adi that, listen, I'll make 2 commercial films, but let me produce this film and let me see if it can go everywhere and become what it is, because I think Kanu Bell is a very distinctive director and very distinctive eye, and that needs to come out because he's completely his own animal, you know. So that's how it started, and then over scripting or whatever you know, advice, whatever interaction that, you know, Kanu would want from me, I was there. And I'm very happy to say that I didn't visit a single day of the shoot. Very happy, my proudest achievement. I was in Delhi at that time when they were shooting. Even then I didn't go for the shoot. Very proud achievement. And then sort of basically being there for the edit, sort of being Kanu's sounding board once in a while when he needed it. It was a torturous process for him also. And then trying to see that, you know, it did well, or sort of, you know, traveled through Cannes or whatever little I could manage. Since I sort of, you know, don't spend too much of my efforts into kind of taking my films to festivals and all that, because there's not that much time and I can't sort of, you know, really manage it. Just making my film is sort of effort enough. Whatever I learned, whatever I gathered from there, that was a help. But yeah, that's about the sort of, you know, end of my contribution, I think, on Titli. And I think maybe I heard Kanu say once, I mean, am I imagining it? I don't know. You'll have to check with Kanu that Kanu said that, yeah, I mean, you've helped me make the film I wanted to make. I mean, this is my film and I have made it. Thank you for sort of, you know, standing by me for that. That thank you that I think I got from Kanu. He was very clear about it, that this is my film and and then the sort of, you know, the adulation that his film got in Cannes sort of, you know, filled me up with pride. I didn't go to Cannes also. And when the way it was released in India, that broke my heart a bit. That broke my heart a lot. But every once in a while, somewhere, you know, I walk down, I'm going to my parking and someone says, I saw Titli. Very good, yeah. And then you realize, and he's not a art film audience. He's a Khosla audience. He says, I saw Titli, very good film, yeah, very good, because it hits them, you know. So that's about my contribution. And as you can see, it's a very fond child.
Mhm, mhm. This question, Dibakar, came from Rajan, who's a filmmaker from Nepal. His short film, Bare Trees in the Mist, is going to be shown in DIFF this year. So keep an eye out for
Congrats.
it. I was just informed by the team, the DIFF team. Uh, uh, Another question from an anonymous attendee. In your films, dialogue, acting, art direction, cinematography seem to be given equal importance and seem in sync. Are you ever led by any formalistic ideas, experiments, or does the story come first?
It starts with trying to replicate reality.
Mhm,
It starts with trying to replicate reality, and reality is what you see and what you hear. Touch नहीं दिखा सकते film में yet. So basically, it starts with a kind of a attempt to be faithful to the life that one has lived. Now, just in case you haven't lived a life of a let's say a political gunda in a small town in Maharashtra, you haven't lived that life, but you have seen a lot of that in the world around you, and then you sort of go and research it, and then you live in that place for some time, you soak that in, and you work with production designers and costume designers and editors and writers who believe in that, who believe in the tool of authenticity as a way of telling what they have to tell. Some people believe in the tool of exaggeration. Some people believe in the tool of complete distraction in how they want to tell it. It's valid as long as you're consistent. But authenticity wale jo filmmaker hai, they have to study it, they have to watch it, they have to research it, they have to live it. And then you have to get people around who see it like you do, which I've been very lucky so far about finding those people, who have that same thirst. And then you put them together, and then everybody pitches into that, as you said, seamless experience, so that when a film finishes, no one should come out and say, I love the cinematography, stunning visuals. One shouldn't say that of your film. So that's the aim. We don't want the parts to be visible. Parts shouldn't be visible. Filmmaking is carpentry, if I may say so. This is the sum total of my seniority and my safed bal. Filmmaking is carpentry. Joint में देखने चाहिए.
That's an interesting way of putting it. B1111643, another anonymous person. What are the elements in the screenplay makes it to be called as a well-written film?
My editor, Jabin Merchant, just said something 2-3 days ago while we were editing my film, and then we were fostered by an insurmountable problem. She turned to me and said, good screenplay has to achieve many other things beyond just the plot. So that's what a good, well-written screenplay is. That it gives you much more than the plot. And I just imitated Jabin, and those who have seen Jabin will resonate with what I've done. I think it was a convincing, sort of, even with my glasses trashed up, but that's a golden truth.
So
it has to do many other things.
So we see a hint of an actor in you also, Dibakar.
Hint?
Okay.
एक एक्टर ने बोला था कि सर ये भगवान ने दुकान बिगाड़ दी वरना मैं भी क्या क्या कर लेता. But no, I don't want to act.
We live for the day to see you acting also on one of the films that you.
I won't. I'm not an actor.
Okay. Now someone talking about Khosla Ka Ghosla, another anonymous attendee. Khosla Ka Ghosla was considered funny when it was made, but in today's time with power structures and people becoming more violent than they were, how do we make films like that?
Good question. Those of who are born, Bengalis rather, they're not called you by an epithet. I'll tell you something that my mother keeps saying. Hare, তুই একটা নির্মল হাসির ছবি বানাতে পারিস না? Which means that क्या रे तेरे से एक साफ सुथरी हंसी की फिल्म नहीं बनती. So yes, a lot of us are looking for Saaf and Suthra. बन सकती है, ऐसा नहीं कि बन सकती नहीं बन सकती, लेकिन क्या है कि वो it depends on the filmmaker. When I was making Khosla Ka Ghosla, everything that's happening today was happening even then in a different way. Okay, except one thing, and that I'll come to. So I was turning away from a lot of the gandagi, and I was looking at some part of complexity in lives that Jaideep had lived and I had lived, which is a common experience. So we kind of overlapped with each other, and that became whatever it is, a kind of a middle class this thing. I have a feeling that because of the demographics of film exhibition, the maximum consumers of feature films are the middle classes now. And the middle classes want to define what is Saaf Suthri. So when we say ke a Saaf Suthri or a kind of a film like Khosla Ka Ghosla with no sexual danger, with no, with nothing that reminds you of the misery of existence, or with no sort of obscenity or cuss words or something like that. It's a relief because a lot of us are making films with those cuss words and that sexual danger, which a moral middle class may not want to watch because it is threatened. So you will have to find filmmakers who today have not woken up to the gandagi and are still energetic enough to look at only the non-gandagi part of it and express themselves. But possible, it's possible. I can't do it. I can't make Khosla again.
I think we are running short of time, and there are some 16 questions still going around. I'll have
एक line में दे देता हूँ.
एक line में जवाब देने हैं, because we are being told last question, but I think you are being very generous. So let's just quickly answer.
One line.
One line. Anisha Javeri, what is reason behind the degeneration of Bollywood? Is the audience ignorant or the producer, maker, pompous and stuck up?
I don't agree that Bollywood has degenerated at all. I think it has thrived and only gone forward and forward.
Apologies for this quick round that we are doing, but we are running short of time. So let's get it.
But I'm speaking the truth. Now that deadline has come, I'm speaking the truth with much less time. So these are all, better truths.
Okay. Anonymous attendee, your advice on getting your foot in the door if you have no connections and aren't from a big film-centric city?
Okay, this will take time. You really have to be sure about what you're doing. Therefore, you really have to be sure about the story that you're telling, and you really have to commit to that story. And you really have to have a very, very thick skin. And you really have to love filmmaking so that everything else becomes unimportant and you become immune to them. And you'll make it.
This is a similar question. What sort of degrees and internships should students look at to become good filmmakers? And another one wants your advice to a budding filmmaker who's trying to make their footing in the industry. I think you answered, didn't you?
SRFTI, FTII, the Chennai Film Institute, Whistling Woods are the top 4 names that come to me. There are many, many such other film institutes which teach you the basics of filmmaking very, very well. And that's not the end. Along with these degrees or institutes or whatever it is, you will need to read up and you need to watch films and you need to be and question. You need to be in those films and question as to what's happening. So that will sort of gear you up for a good entry into the film world. The second question was?
Advice that you'll give to a budding filmmaker.
Advice to a given budding? I mean, you're on your own, buddy. That's my advice. I mean, daddy told you to become an engineer. You are doing it because you want to. So now you better sort of, suck it up and then just go ahead and do it because there's no coming back, is there?
Mm-hmm. Knowing exactly what sells, how do you hold back? Do you?
I don't. Okay, fine. I only make films which interest me because I have a feeling that only by doing such films that I'll be able to sell myself. If I do something that doesn't interest me, then my boredom will show in the film. So, and that will be the surest way of killing my career. So I'm only doing what interests me. I'm doing it cheaply. I'm surviving so far. So I guess it's working.
What can replace filmmaking for you?
Good question.
Answer is good question.
मुझे सोचना पड़ेगा.
Okay.
वो तो पूरी life है उसके लिए.
Which means nothing. I'm just gathering.
No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's not nothing. That's why it's a good question.
Okay. We'll discuss this at length later sometime. There's a recent trend of going back to literature, making adaptations on screen. You see yourself doing that in the near future? You have the entire Byomkesh Bakshi rights, do you have, right?
No.
Well, I was told that you had bought some Bengali rights. I mean, I may be mistaken again. Like, just like...
No, I don't. I don't own the rights to Byomkesh. The rights owner's family.
Okay. But what about the this trend for adaptations? How do you see it as a filmmaker?
Always a favorite, because I come from a family which read in 3 languages. Actually read in 2, Bangla and Hindi, and then a little bit of English. And so now I come from a family which reads Bangla, English, Hindi hugely. English ka bahut bad gaya hai, but still my roots in Bangla and Hindi have sort of opened me up to lots of Indian stories, which are as deep and as varied as, let us say, parts of European or Western fiction that we read, to sort of diversify our knowledge and sort of broaden our horizons, so to speak. So and always wanting to.
Is there any chance that the conflict of the story will bend according to the political beliefs and the censorship board? If compromise, the conflict loses its spice.
No, sure.
How do you proceed with the censor board cutting off the scenes that are the main important part of a screenplay?
There's never a time which has been without compromise. There's never been a time which has been without a bend his sort of creative will to his survival instinct. So these negotiations are the negotiations that every creator has to do in every time, and it's your own personal answer what you do. As I said, it's about figuring out 3 things: how afraid are you, how caring are you, and how uncaring are you.
What is more powerful, image or sound? This is becoming like those quickfire rounds in Coffee with Karan,
In cinema, in general cinema, the way it has become, it's image. Yeah, because it's a huge image. Sound plays a slightly secondary role, but if you take that role away, then the image falls.
I'm sorry.
In today's sound cinema, this wouldn't have been true in the silent days.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm not taking everybody's name out there because we are just going.
Please.
Yeah. Which was the last film that you saw that impressed you?
So many. If you listen, I've forgotten the film. I don't know. The last film that I was seeing just to sort of, watch and all that. The last series that sort of, stayed with me and impressed me was Unbelievable.
Tell us about 3 of your favorite movies from different industries.
No. Too many.
Ray and Ghatak as your inspiration. How far have they inspired you?
Their experiences and lived experiences as depicted in their films have been very different from me. I have grown up on Ray because of his written stories. So I come from that part of Bengali-dom where the consciousness of Ray is a little more than the consciousness of Ghatak, because of Ray's gigantic span beyond the world of films into popular culture in Bengali life. So I was always sort of, more within that world, which is why my consciousness of Ray is a little more than Ghatak. But as I started getting into Ghatak, I've realized over the last 10, 20 years that there's a lot that can be stolen, picked, copied, and mimicked as regards new kinds of structure. So and new kinds of storytelling. I mean, there are seeds there which one can really make use of. So I try to answer you my question very honestly that currently I'm trying to sort of study that up and sort of get into that thing.
Yeah. With the rise of phone, tablet, laptop streaming, viewers of film audience experience of watching cinema culture has changed. Do you think it would also affect the way we make films, and how?
Oh, it always does. The arrival of sound changed filmmaking. The arrival of television made the television film. The changing of the medium keeps changing in some ways and keep certain Purana sort of conventions the same way. But it will definitely change filmmaking. Yeah, it should. It should.
Uh, any recommendations from DIFF lineup this year?
I haven't seen the lineup. I haven't seen what are the films that are there. And I may sound like a complete Philistine, but all those who are filmmakers will understand when I say that I'm in the middle of my final month of editing. And I have no consciousness of anything else than the film that I'm editing. I'm here because DIFF is really different, and I'm here because I'm really sort of happy and proud to be on the first online version of this COVID times. What we are all going through. This is a singularity. This is a singular time, a time of confluence. There's a lot of convergences happening right now. So I'm happy to be here, sort of just to be noted and counted. And I'm here to talk about films and have that breath of fresh air in my COVID life. That we are talking about things that are important in filmmaking, so that I'm happy about. And after that, I'm going back to my editing, and I'm there till for another 2-3 hours. So that's my life, and then I start early morning tomorrow again.
I think that's a damn good note to wrap up the conversation. There's one person called Tenzing Gin Gold who's saying, who's asking you, whether we will visit Dharamshala for DIFF next year.
I would love to. But in addition to being a film enthusiast, I'm a professional filmmaker and a producer, and a struggling one at that, and I'm a parent. So things have changed. Things change as you come to 50. Things change. And so all that freedom allowed to me, 15, 20 years, to me and my wife, is not there. So I would love to, because Dharamshala and Nikliotganj are our favorite places. Our favorite places. My daughter has walked there. She's hiked there when she was a 5-year-old, and full of photos of Dharamshala and Nikliotganj, our photo library. So we anyway love coming there. Festival ke liye hua ki nahi pata nahi. Love to.
Lovely place it is. I think we are all missing being in
It is.
The mountain air, the whole informality of the festival, the cafes, the lovely food at the cafes, and meeting all the people. But I hope that next year, which is the 10th anniversary of the festival, I think we should all assemble there and make it big. In the meanwhile, I think at 00 hours today onwards, you can start watching the films, and there are some very, very good films on view. So happy viewing, and thanks for joining us. Dibakar, big thanks for taking the time out and talking as well as you always do. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And all the best to the film. Looking forward to it. Bye.
And thank you, everybody. And thank you, Ritu and Tenzing and all those people, Radha, and all those people who I know are working behind the scenes right now. They haven't had lunch. They most probably will skip dinner, whatever it is, trying to make this as much of an enjoyable thing online. So that's something that should be acknowledged. A big cheer should go out to all those people who are behind this, trying to make it happen.
Lovely. Have a great festival, folks. See you next year in Dharamshala. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.